Metal Summoners, what's up, my friends? We are super stoked to be right back with you. We want to say thank you again to Project Mayhem AD, our earlier interview. We appreciate their courtesies, and we had a great time with them. And Metal Summoners, thank you guys for tuning in and showing them a lot of love and supporting live music. And we are right back with you guys. Thank you so much again for supporting us. Welcome back to your island of Misfit Toys. It's going to be a great one. We're going to have a really good time. We have got the one and only Angel Alamo, but we have the real Psycho Steve rocking out with us. And of course, we've got myself. We appreciate you guys for supporting this show, rocking out on your island of Misfit Toys, and just kicking off your weekend in the middle of the week. So let's have a good time. Let's continue the good times because we have got the guy. We are very, very appreciative of his time. So many amazing albums, so much amazing music, great guitar playing, and an all-round really, really great guy. Now an alumnus of the show, the one and only Jason Hook. Flat Black is in the house. First and foremost, Jason, thank you so much, sir, for some of your evening, and welcome to the Metal Summit.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. And when you rolled that intro, it came out my speakers at like 160 dB. I'm like scrambling for the turn it down dial. Oh my God, it scared the shit out of me.
Oh, sorry about that, brother. But that actually makes for a great story because, I mean, that's the first time we've ever heard of how our intro comes through like on a studio setting with that kind of equipment. So hopefully you can still hear us.
No, it was great. It was just startled me a little.
No, absolutely. But again, thank you so much for some of your time, Jason. We really, really appreciate it, man. And first and foremost, congratulations on everything that's going on with Flat Black. And let's jump right into it with everything going there. You know, how was it forming that band, putting this project together?
Everything has been amazing. I just want to point out that I wasn't fully aware that I had the shirt on, but I was too lazy to race downstairs and change it. So yes, I'm wearing my own band shirt, but it just showed up this morning as I wanted to wear something clean. Anyway, I mean, look, I feel very lucky. You know, it's music business is really tough. Launching any kind of new band in this environment these days is really tough. But it kind of wasn't, retiring really wasn't an option. You know, like I've kind of been doing the same thing my whole life, and I figured, why should this be any different? You know, I mean, I've built so many bands in my lifetime. I think that it's something that I'm good at. You know, it's not rocket science. And with my history, I had a bit of an advantage because I could reach out to people and have them respond. You know, like, yes, count me in. I'd love to hear what you're doing. You know, so it wasn't a complete dead lift, and that allowed me to sort of contact people and pick the right guy for each role, sort of one at a time, you know?
Yeah.
Are we live? Like, is there a chat thing happening as we're going through?
There is, yeah. So we're a live show, and the fans watch and they'll comment. So we'll have segments throughout the episode of fans that want to ask you questions, all of which we monitor, you know, because we always want the guests to feel comfortable and not have to worry about everything. So we do track the questions that are coming in. We want the guests to, we want the fans to feel that they can ask anything, but we are cognizant of certain topics and stuff like that. But yes, sir, we are live.
Okay, cool. I saw something going past the screen there. Like, whoa, what was that?
But yeah, sorry, Jason. Right back to you, sir.
All good. Ask me something.
Oh yeah, no worries. No, I definitely can appreciate like how it is like forming a band, even with an established history and a lot of experience like you do. But it's very cool that, you know, you had the opportunity to look at it on an even plane and just be like, this is what I'm looking for each position. These are kind of like the like-minded individuals that I'm looking for. I mean, so on that same note, for anybody who's unfamiliar with Flat Black, Jason, would you mind introducing on their behalfs the members that play with you?
Yeah, the singer's name is Rex Horton. Drummer is Rob Pierce, and the bass player from Los Angeles is Nicholas Diltz, son of the famous 70s rock photographer Henry Diltz, for anyone who is into rock and roll history.
Nice, man. That's super duper awesome for sure, brother. But Psycho Steve, it's been a moment since we've had you live on the show. You've been working behind the scenes as always with us. But please, my man, let's kick it over to you for a little bit.
Well, I don't hear you, Steve.
The question I have for you is, you've always been a guitarist. Are your first?
You're cutting out.
I said, was guitar your first?
I read your lips, but was guitar my first instrument? No. No, I got well, first of all, when I decided that I was going to be playing instruments, I was obsessed. Just like I am now, I sort of go over the edge and I have to have it all. But the first thing I remember vividly wanting was a drum set. And hounded my dad, please get me a drum set. I wanted to be Peter Criss so bad. And I spent many years messing around as the drummer and got, I don't know, I just figured, okay, time to learn something else. So guitar, I was doing drums and guitar sort of at the same time. And I realized that you can't take your drum, when grandma and grandpa are over, you can't really drag the drum kit out and play for them, but you can with the guitar. So they, take the guitar to the campfire. It's a lot easier to take your guitar to rehearsal. I figured that's it. I'm not packing up a drum kit ever again.
Nice.
Too much stuff.
Are do you still have?
You're cutting out pretty bad, Steve, but I think you asked me if I still have my first guitar.
Better. Yes.
I don't know what the question was.
Yeah.
Car
that you own.
Can anyone else hear him?
Yeah, it was a little choppy, Jason. But yeah, I think it was asking, do you still have your first guitar?
No. No, the first guitar I ever owned was a Sigma acoustic guitar. Sigma is was like the affordable Martin. It was their sort of like Epiphone line. And it was stolen. Our rehearsal space way back in the day, when I was in club bands, our rehearsal space got broken into, and that was the end of that guitar. And my first electric was like a Sears $99 special Les Paul, and I think I gave that to somebody to hang on to, and I think they may still have it. I don't know, but it's not like I'm Jones and have it back. It was a pile of shit,
Okay. All right. And speaking of Kiss, did you get to see them on their farewell tour?
Oh God, yeah. I went to several shows. I don't even know how many, but we would. I don't think it's any big secret, but I'm a pretty big Kiss fan, and I would just fly around and see them play just because it was fun. And I did go to the very last two shows at Madison Square Garden in December of last year. I was there for Kiss weekend, and it was a buzz. The whole Manhattan was just stuffed with Kiss fans, and it was Kiss at Starbucks, Kiss at the museum, Kiss everywhere. And I loved it. It was great fun.
Nice. I was at the
very last show, December 2nd. Oh, we lost.
Awesome. Steve, come back. But I can't actually answer that say that on his behalf. Yes, he was.
Oh yeah, it was kind of sad, just the whole thing. I mean, the Madison Square Garden was filled with diehard lifers, like people from all over the world that were Kiss diehard packed that place. So the energy was pretty special, and that was sad and wonderful at the same time.
Absolutely. Like literally the last non-New York show, of course they played those two New York shows to close out the touring career, on home base, was in Baltimore, and Maryland is where I live. So I saw them with my girlfriend that night. So I got to see, as of right now, the last not non-New York
Kiss
show, and it was great as always. Like, yeah, there's a small part of me that wouldn't have hated some deeper cuts and stuff like that. But at the same time, I've seen Kiss enough myself. That was actually her first time seeing them. But like I've seen Kiss enough to where I kind of knew the show I was gonna get, but didn't make it any less great, where you understand that on certain farewell tours and certain things where it might be a person's last or maybe even only chance to see them, that being a little more hits friendly sometimes can be the way.
Yeah. Wasn't Baltimore like one of the last 3 or 4 shows?
It was literally the last show right before New York.
Okay, that's what I thought. I'll tell you though, the first night in New York was better.
Really?
Yeah, I thought. And I checked, I've compared notes with a couple other Kiss diehards, and they agree that, I guess because it was like, whoa, we're here, it's in New York, they were super amped. You could feel that they were into it. We're in New York. Then the second night, I was like, okay, now we have to like do it all over again. It's kind of like playing shows is kind of like, imagine trying to throw 60 New Year's Eves in a row.
Yeah.
Like at some point you're kind of forcing it a little bit. Like you're like, fuck, okay, let's, got to do it again and again and again. It's that special night for everyone that bought the ticket, but then they go home and they talk about, oh, it's so great, they're back at work. You got to keep doing it and do it and do it and do it and do it. It takes a sort of a strong mindset to be able to continue to play a show as if it's your first and last every single time.
Absolutely. No, 100%. For anybody that didn't go to both of those shows or haven't looked up the 2 set lists, like for example, myself, I have not looked at the 2 set lists. Was there differences to the 2 set lists, being that they were playing back-to-back shows in New York, or was it the same sets?
They were I think I recall them being the same show.
Oh, gotcha.
And that show is so orchestrated that I can't imagine they deviate too far, because everything is tied together, all the effects and the segues, and I don't think it's so orchestrated at this point. When I say at this point, it's over, but
right,
it was the same show 2 nights in a row. But it was the last night they had the little extra ending bit, which wasn't part of the first night, which they had holograms that dropped down throughout the arena, and then they showed the Avatar movie thing, and it was kind of cool.
Oh, no. Right on. Steve, before I kick it right back to you, buddy, Jason, just for the last part of this Kiss segment, what's your opinion, if you don't mind, of the final moments of that Kiss show? Because there's a lot of back and forth. We discussed it on this show. Like we all collaborated with a friend of a mutual colleague of ours that's a Kiss guy as well, about our thoughts on the final show. What's your thought? Because there's a little bit of me that does side with the general populace that feels that it was a little robotic at the end, that they should have showed a little bit more gratitude, but is also understanding of there's so many people to thank that of course you would give up 2 hours of your life thanking everybody. But I'm kind of part of the group that's like, well, some type of thank you movie, like, video would have been cool in my opinion. But what was your thought as somebody else who was at that final show?
Well, I kind of know that inner circle a little bit, the Kiss guys, and I just know them, that they put everything that they have into that final tour, but that doesn't mean they're going to construct an entire new segment or new piece of content for the final show. It's just like, we're going to do all these shows, and then when the last one's done, I think they just all went home. I don't think there was any kind of celebration. I think they were tired. That's it. We did the best we can. We played every nook and cranny of the planet, including 2 final shows, not just one final show, 2 final shows, and a pay-per-view. And they had to whip up that Avatar thing while on tour. Like, they had to film that little segment. There was a documentary that was on Kiss the website. That's a lot of stuff to do while you're in the middle of a tour, So, I thought everyone was hoping that they were going to tip their hat to the other guys, Peter, Ace, and Bruce, and Eric, and or not Eric was there. Who am I missing? Bruce and Mark St. John, Vinnie Vincent, and all that stuff. But I just know them. They don't care. They don't give a fuck. This is it. There you go. We did the best. We're not going to sit over. And I think, honestly, without talking about Kiss for an hour, but I think that Ace got in a little bit of a schism with Paul like 6 months prior to the final show. So when that happened, I'm like, well, that's it. If there was a thread of hope of inviting those guys down, that's killed it,
Yeah. No, for sure. Absolutely. Psycho Steve, let's kick it right back to you, my guy.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about Flat Black. How did the name
come together?
The name. Well, the name, I've told the story a few times, but I had a list of 1,000 names on an iPhone notepad. And, you kind of want to get it right. And there was a million different ideas and nobody could agree on one idea. And then my friends were trying to tell me that I should call the band Hook. And I really didn't want to call the band Hook. I thought that was kind of low-hanging fruit. And anyway, I was driving around Vegas one day on my way home, and I was down on the Vegas Strip, and the airport. There's a private airport right on the Strip. I mean, the Strip sort of passes by the commercial airport, but then there's a little further south. There's a private airport, and I remember being stuck at a red light. I was looking over at this jet, obviously a private jet that was all flat black. I mean, there was a few other jets that were sort of generic white, whatever. This one was flat black from top to bottom, the engine, the windows, everything. It was so sick. And I remember thinking, that's a statement plane, like whoever's cruising around on that thing has designed that, like you don't just pick that. That's something you go out of your way to get. And I just thought it looked so badass. I was driving home thinking, oh, it's a color, flat black, deep purple, flat black. Black is sort of the color of our community, our genre. And I just thought if flat black is sort of like one level even sicker, like when people want to wrap their automobile or their motorcycle or whatever, they kind of wrap it in that matte black, So I just wrote it down, and then we got to a point where it was like the 11th hour, we need a name. And I said, well, what about flat black? And they were like, that's not bad. And so we passed it around a little bit, and it was like, that's it. And I, of course, me being sort of super hesitant, I'm like, well, okay, I'm glad everyone likes it, but let me sleep on it. Let me think about it, because it's a big move, picking a band name, like you kind of have to get it right. However, it does check a lot of boxes as far as like, you don't have to explain it. People know how to spell it. They can read it. It's not tricky, easy to remember, the whole thing, right?
Now, is you live in Vegas. A lot of musicians moved out of Los Angeles, moved to Nashville, moved to Vegas. Who are your neighbors?
Who are my neighbors?
Yep.
Yeah, like our friend neighbors. Like I know Eric Singer lives there. I know Todd Kearns lives there. I know Phil Lewis lives there. Bruce Kulick lives.
There's a ton of musician friends that I have. You name it: Brent Fitz, Todd Kearns, DJ Ashba, Corey Taylor, Eddie Trunk. Of course, Brent Fitz. I mean, anyone and everyone that plays music. I pretty much know all the musicians in town. Steel Panther, Russ from Steel Panther. Yeah, I mean, they're all over the place. I think people gave up on LA because it was so run down and homeless problem and state tax and the whole thing. And so the next logical destination is just like Vegas is right next door and it's half the price,
Angel.
No, saying football team moved to Vegas.
Right. Right. I haven't seen a football game yet, though.
He's from Canada. He likes hockey.
I'm hockey all the way. Maple Leafs, Golden Knights. There you go.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I'm a big hockey guy too.
Yeah, really, the sport really caught fire here with the Knights, and it's so much fun and so exciting. And, when they win, it's like the whole city erupts. It's great.
Nice.
Yeah, they went to the Stanley Cup their first year in existence.
Yeah.
Las Vegas Knights. Yeah.
But that's what got everyone like paying attention, because it was basically the team was constructed of all of the rejects from the draft.
Dude, that's what I loved about it, Jason. Sorry to cut in, Angel, but I was like, that's what I loved about it, dude. I was like, this team is literally constructed of all the people that are pissed off at all their previous employers, so they're going to go to the finals just to spite them.
Right. It's a hell of a triumph. Just an incredible story. And then, of course, winning the cup. I mean, it's just nutty.
Yeah.
Bet the owner's happy.
I made the right move.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Steve, I am a hockey fan.
Yeah.
Right back to you, buddy.
So how's the songwriting going for the band so far?
Songwriting? Well, right now I'm not really in writing mode. Spent a lot of last couple of years sort of getting this together. Album just came out less than a month ago, on July 19th. So I'm kind of doing press, we're rehearsing, building the we're getting ready to do headline shows, which is kind of a first for us. Right now we've been mainly opening and doing like a 30-minute set. So now we have to play like an hour or hour 15, something like that. So we're trying to figure out what songs work the best, who gets a solo, what cover song you want to play, all that stuff. We rehearse up here in my studio. You can't see the rest of the room over there, but it's a big room with drums and the whole thing and PA. So we rehearse up here.
Awesome. Gonna throw in.
Steve, I love you. I hate your fucking phone.
Do the same thing.
Yeah, your phone stinks.
I said,
Angel, this is reminiscent of you with your internet like a month or so ago before I told you to change your internet service.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is podcast doom.
All right.
All right, do your best.
Question for me, Angel.
Maybe you could text it over.
We missed all of that, Steve. I am really sorry to tell you, brother. Well, while Steve's getting that situated, I'm gonna jump in for just a quick second. So, Jason, the new album's out. It's been out for less than a month, like we just discussed. Dark Side of the Brain. It's always got to feel incredibly exciting, very gratifying, and maybe even to a certain degree a little scary to have a new album or new music out there. How has the reception been so far? How have you felt about Dark Side of the Brain being out?
It has surpassed my expectations. I don't know. I don't know what to expect, but I worked really hard on the record, as did everyone else in the group. And I always, anything I do, I try to do it 110%. And that, that might sound a little cliche, but I'm a quality snob. I'm extremely picky. I don't settle. I torture myself and everyone around me to make sure that everything is the best it can be. So the record, I think people are picking up on that. If you go to YouTube and look through any of the comments, I can't control what people say, but just read through. There's hundreds and hundreds of people saying that, this is the best record they've ever heard. There's no filler. You should, I love this. I love that. Next big band, whatever. So, I mean, that's about the best you could hope for 3 weeks into the release, Yeah.
100% for sure. Being that you're so particular about anything being released and being ready for when you want to release it on the populace, do you How do you know when a song is done, if at all?
Well, I think that I have the ability to listen to things from the audience perspective. And so what does that mean? I think that I don't get sort of lost in things that I need to satisfy myself. I'm always thinking about how is this going to affect the listener, and is this grab them right away, and does it hold their attention, and is every section sort of equally as good as the previous section and then the next section, and does the chorus jump out of the speakers? Is it after you've heard it once, can you remember anything from it? I mean, it's taken decades and decades of practice to try to learn that. It's not something I can really explain, but it's just, I grew up liking big bands with big songs, and I studied some of the tricks and methodology of some of my big favorite bands, and I think a lot of it just has to come down to keeping things somewhat simplified.
Yeah.
They can be complicated, but don't move it around too much, because too much data, like, human beings are analog and we live in a computer world. So I think that one of the problems that I identified was that people are doing whatever they want in the computer, forgetting that you can't really do all that as a human, and then the listener can't really absorb all that information. It's too complicated, too busy, So I try to remember that human beings are very simple, and they like to sing and dance. And You Shook Me All Night Long and my Budweiser, and if you start fucking things around too much, any of the success I've had with songs, or some of them, without a word of a lie, may have 2 or 3 sections in the entire song. Very simple. They just continue to rotate the sections, like a little bit off. I almost think a little bit off has the same chord progression all the way through. It's just dressed up a little differently from verse to chorus and all that stuff, but it doesn't change. And I think that with modern progressive metal, people are like, as complicated as we can fucking make it, odd bars, odd time signatures. It's a style, but I think of timeless, iconic songs. I don't know if those are going to live forever. I don't know. That's my opinion.
Yeah, man, for sure. Absolutely. Steve, right back to you, brother.
Yep. I got the questions from Steve.
You got no problem.
He wants to know, what was your first tattoo?
My first tattoo, and this is really embarrassing to say, but I had like a little Japanese symbol on my arm here that said guitarist or something. There it is. Well, that's Kiss. Yeah, it was. I was when I first moved to. Well, I was first visiting LA in 1992. Like, me and my band and I were down there recording a record, and nobody had ink, and we were like, let's go get tattoos. Like, that's a big, dangerous, risky step, eh? And I went to the wall, and I was like looking at all these kanjis, and I was like, oh, there's one, guitarist, cool, put that on there. So it said guitarist. And then years later, I was working for a Japanese woman. I was mixing in front of house at a nightclub gig, mixing, and she comes up and she goes, why do you have string on your arm? I'm like, it's not, it's guitar player. She goes, no, it's string. I'm like, oh, fuck, great. But it's been covered up a little bit, a long time ago.
Steve wants to know, are you going to do a Mandy Moore cover?
Steve, you know the answer to that. Even with your shitty phone, you know the answer with that.
Oh, Steve.
What kind of car do you drive?
I have 2 cars. I have a Mercedes 350E class. I don't think it's a big deal, but then I also have a Ford Raptor, which I enjoy much better, actually.
Nice.
Yeah. The Raptor is the best. I mean, it's got 44-inch tires on it. The whole thing has been carbon fiber, and it looks like a rock and roll truck, that's for sure.
And here's a good question from Brian. Tell us about your first ever live show.
Well, like how far back you want to go?
When he was a teenager?
I was like Brian said first ever, but we're cool with whatever.
Well, back when I started playing guitar when I was 6 years old. And I forced my friends to be in a band with me. Everybody back then wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons and ride BMX bicycles, and I bought drums and bass and all that stuff. My dad helped me, and so I would be like, "You're the bass player, you're the drummer. We're going to rehearse every day at 5 o'clock after school." And a couple of my buddies, God bless them, I don't think I was very popular, but I insisted that we were going to be a band, whether they were into it or not. And we eventually played like at the parents' whatever they do at school, like when you're really young, they have like a talent show or drama night or whatever. And they're like, Jason, you and your little band can play in between skits or whatever. So I think we knew like Stairway to Heaven. I think I was 6 or 7 years old. So that was it. I still have a couple pictures from that somewhere. Well, I was like this tall, like you get Les Paul. I had a Les Paul that was like, it took up half of my body.
And Steve wants to know, when you got your first Advance, what did you buy?
Well, I didn't, to be honest with you, I invest. I didn't really, like, you gotta understand, like, I came from being in Los Angeles as a starving musician, not having $10 in my bank account. So when we started to make real money, I was just like, don't forget what that was like. I don't ever want to have to work ever again. I don't want a boss. I don't want a fucking job. So pretty much 80% of everything I made, I invested, and I bought, I own my house, I own my cars, I don't have any debt. I didn't go out and get stupid shit. I bought the studio, which was like the only thing I kind of treated myself to because I need a place to work. But I feel, well, that's the answer. I don't really know. I didn't really go splurging on anything except for gear, which isn't it's not a very sexy answer. But I'm kind of practical, I guess,
And what advice would you give to your 10-year-old self?
Ooh. I would stay away from drugs and alcohol. I think I would have probably saved myself some good brain damage as an earlier person if I had never fucked around with anything like that, But at the beginning of Death Punch, it was Motley Crue, 1987. I'll just leave it at that. And we were going fucking mental.
I mean, that's what almost killed them.
Yeah.
So how, if I could ask about the documentary Hired Gun, how was you approached to be in the documentary?
Well, it didn't really work like that. I own that movie. That's my movie, right? So yeah. So I was sitting in the back of a tour bus with our then tour videographer, and we were talking about like, what if I wanted to make a documentary? Like, what would that cost, and what's involved? And if I were to kick down X amount of dollars, could we make something decent? And that's kind of how it started. And then, it's so funny because the initial number we were talking about was a very low number, and it turned into like 50 times that number by the time it was done. But I'm very proud of it. Some really talented people came in and worked on that.
Yeah.
I just love documentaries. I love being able to peek behind the curtain and get some real truth and the nuts and bolts of how people were treated or how things really were, the kind of stuff that the public's not supposed to know about. Let's peel back that curtain and reveal all the grit. I love that. So I just thought, okay, well, musicians, right? So I can get my hands on musicians. I got tons of musicians that would be willing to tell stories. Let's just film that. How hard can that be? The secret is in the editing, and I found an extremely talented A-lister editor, Tim Calandrello, who did the Foo Fighters Back and Forth movie.
I love that documentary.
Yeah, he's an A-lister document. He's an editor, and he helped produce the film. And when he started doing the editing, that's when I was like, holy, okay, this is coming to life. And these segments are touching the nerve, and they really move me. And it's like there's no dead space. It's kind of like, it really comes down to the editing, and how it's strung together. But, we interviewed all these people for 4, 5, 6 hours, and then they would just get into that one little 10-minute segment where they're telling some horrific story. And I'm just watching it going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And then I'm like, cool, that's all we need. Just grab that, and we'll put it to, if we could grab that like really shocking moment from everyone's interview and just tie it all together, we should have something that's fairly compelling. Is there any current bands you're into right now? Well, I'm listening to the same stuff we're all listening to. I'm on Sirius Octane. I get all the Bad Wolves and Bad Omens and Sleep Token. And but is there any? I mean, people ask me this all the time, and I don't really have an answer. I'm kind of just listening to what the platforms are playing. I don't really jam one specific record. Although I'm trying to think if there was. I mean, I like what Mammoth is doing. I like. I can't really think of anything. Most of the time with Flat Black, I'm thinking about what's the second record going to sound like. Do I have any ideas? So it's when you're in that, like, I have to make my own music. It's hard to like swim around in everyone else's all the time. Yeah. I jam the Flat Black record at least 2-3 times a day.
Nice.
And I'm not saying that to be a douche or anything. I'm just the memories of putting each part of that thing together and every solo and fixing this and going to the studio, record drums. And like, as I listen to those songs, like so much hand carving went into every moment of those songs. And it's just like, I listen to it with pride,
Yeah, those songs. Do you play every day? Especially for Steve.
Yeah. I don't think, I mean, it depends. I mean, I have guitars like in every room of the house. And so if I'm watching TV, there's a couple downstairs. I just pick up. I don't know. It becomes like the sensation of having one in your hand. It becomes sort of like you kind of need it. It's like if you were a smoker, right? You just can't stop thinking about, I need another cigarette. It kind of has that feeling like you just want to feel and do what your fingers have been doing for decades, So they're all over the place. I don't practice like intensely. Right now I'm learning some of the songs off the record. I have to go back and sort of do my homework and go, how did I do that? How am I going to recreate that live,
Steve asks, what's your favorite song that you have written?
Oh, well, let's go with something new. I think A Bit of Lightning is pretty good. I I like It's Okay to Be Angry, the opening track on the Flat Black record. I think that's pretty creative. Interesting story. I don't know if you've heard it, but there's a spoken word thing at the beginning of that song. And I was reading a self-help book, and there was a chapter on anger, and one of the one of the paragraphs was like, it's okay to be angry. And the whole premise of it was that you could take, if you feel that swell, that rush of I'm going to lose my mind, you're supposed to like block it, stop it, and then sort of redirect it and diffuse it before it causes any damage. And I thought that's kind of interesting. But the chapter was like, it's okay to be angry, chapter 4. So I thought, oh, that sounds like a song title. I can read the next question. Are you a dog or a cat person? I'm a cat person. Anyone who knows me, I have 7 cats.
Oh,
Wow.
And I love each and every one of them. I know. Well, here's the thing. So my wife and I have 4 cats inside the house. At one point, there was a pregnant feral that showed up drinking out of our pool. And I could see this cat on the camera. I'm like, there's a cat drinking from the pool every night. So we started putting up food, a bowl of food, and the cat's coming every day, eat the food. And then I'm looking at the cat going, that cat looks pregnant. Like, you can kind of tell. So we capture the cat, take the cat in. The cat has the kittens. They keep the cat because it used to be like a household cat that somebody, I guess, abandoned or whatever. So they keep that cat, but they deliver back to us the kittens. So, like, what the hell? So we have 3 that live outside, and we visit with them every single day. I can pick them up and hold them. They're ferals, but I've been feeding them since they were this big, so they're not afraid of us. And it's quite something.
Just have a silly question about cats. Have you ever watched Stone Cold Steve Austin's videos on cats?
No.
He kind of owns like 2 cats, so he's become like a cat person now after wrestling, which is pretty hilarious.
Oh, wow. I'm not a crazy cat person, but like my wife had 2 cats, then I had 2 cats. We come together, that makes 4. And then we had this weird thing with the feral cat. They live outside. So 2 plus 2 is 4 plus 3 is 7. We've got 3 kittens outside. It just happened by accident, But you don't have to walk cats. You don't have to like take them out to go to the bathroom. They don't bark, They don't sniff your crotch when your friends come over. So I'm into it.
well, Jason, on that same topic, how did My Cat from Hell come into being a thing?
Oh, interesting. Well, we, as I just mentioned, my wife had 2 cats and I had 2 cats, and for some reason, one of hers is violent. Has a violence problem, and I thought we would be able to just mix it all up, but we can't. So every day we have to rotate the cats. Like 2 cats are in the master suite, and then they come out, and it's their chance to be out in the house, and then the other cats go into the master suite, and every day we have to rotate them. And I had this idea that I had a custom door made that had like a grill where they could sort of get to know each other, but they just fought through the grill and ripped their claws out and all kinds of nasty shit. So my wife said to me, we need like Jackson Galaxy to come and help us. I'm like, let me get on that. Let me make some calls. And I found a friend of mine who knows him. And one thing led to another, and all of a sudden we're on the show.
Nice.
But we really needed the guy's help. I mean, if you see the episode, you can see at the beginning of the episode, the cats are rolling around and hair's flying all over the place, and that's what we were dealing with.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I wanted to pop back over real quick to sorry, Angel, did we have a fan question that popped up, dude? Because that's totally cool.
what part of Canada are you from?
Toronto, Ontario. I was born in Toronto. Grew up in a suburb called Oakville. Oakville, tiny little suburb, 45 minutes west of Toronto.
Nice. So it was going to be all Maple Leafs all the time.
It was for a long time. I used to go watch Daryl Sittler play at Maple Leaf Gardens, and that's going way back.
Hell yeah, bro. I wanted to take you back for a second to Hired Gun, because like I was telling you off the air, like, it's a stellar documentary, Jason. I'm sure you're incredibly proud, but you should be also. It really came across well. I saw it in the theaters on one of like the limited screenings that they did. And the thing I thought was very interesting and that I wanted to ask you about was like, what was your thought process about tackling that specific topic when it comes to it? Because obviously you've got your fair share of experience in that position, whether it be with Moore or with Vince Neil or stuff like that. But like, obviously when people think of bands and they think of musicians, they think of the main musicians, the main bands that you see, or are like the bands, you know, the members of Motley Crue or the members of Poison or the members of Bad Omens and stuff like that. What was it about like wanting to tackle that, as in like the Wizard of Oz, like pay no attention to that man behind the curtain, you know, like what was it about that specific topic and getting, you know, those musicians more in the limelight?
Well, the honest answer is there back then there was a movie that maybe won an Oscar called 20 Feet from Stardom. And it was sort of similar in its theme. But it had to do with like, same idea, like background singers, people that had played on huge famous records, Rolling Stones and stuff like that. And my partner at the time was like, let's do something like that, but let's do it like in rock and roll. And I was like, all right. I mean, I know a lot of musicians. I can get a lot of stories. And, you know, there's people that are artists, and then there are people that just get paid to play for artists. And I think you're really lucky if you get to do either. You know, if you can play your instrument and make a living and not have to go to work like at Home Depot, I think you're still in the like 1 percentile of lucky people. But there are some struggles there, you know, not on a personal level and on a financial level, and it's a tough hustle. It's a tough hustle because you can live this exciting life and you can make good money when you're touring, but it's never a long-term situation. Most often it's not a long-term situation until you get to like Liberty DeVito, who was quite obviously invited into Billy Joel's world as a band member, but as success happened, it sort of changed into more like, you're my drummer. Mm-hmm. And then 30 years later, you pissed me off, you're fired with no, that's it. Go find another gig after 30 years. So, you know, there are a lot more stories like that people will never know about. And I just wanted to shine a light on it because some of it's kind of shocking and sad, you know.
For sure. Were there any particular interviews or whatever that you found particularly like interesting, or certain peers that you hadn't gotten to know yet at the time that you were like, wow, that's a really cool situation, and now I'm enjoying, you know, getting to know this person's and their journey?
Oh yeah. We talked to a lot of people. Not everyone made the movie. I think like John Five had a lot of funny stories that weren't in the movie. Something about going to Rob Halford's house and sitting on a couch and staining it with chocolate or something and flipping the thing. It was really funny. We talked to so many people. There's so much. I mean, I have 300 hours of interviews from that movie, and the movie's, you know, 90 minutes. So you can imagine how many leftover hours you get out of 300 hours.
Yeah.
And every once in a while I'll go back and watch, and we did like Eric Singer you know, he likes to talk, and he talked forever, and I've got all 7 hours of it or whatever it was. And, you know, I forgot, what was the question?
Oh no, no worries, Jason. I was just like, if there was maybe somebody that you interviewed for it, or that maybe you didn't have as, strong a relationship with at the time, that maybe just had you be like, wow, that is super cool. I'm glad they were involved. Like, I'm glad I know this person now, kind of a thing, or wow, that was a really cool story. Just something like that.
Yeah, no, it's hard to say. Some of the interviews were very clinical, where there was quite obviously, you're given X amount of time, like David Foster, Bob Ezra, and stuff like that. Some of the interviews I wasn't even present for. Like, we would get an interview booked, and then I've got to pay for a director, a videographer, a sound guy, flights, rental vehicle, hotels. I got to pay for all that. So then it's like, do you need to be there? Me? I'm like, well, I'm going to pay for me to be there. So I was like, oh, I don't always need to be there. We're trying to get the content and stay sort of budget aware,
Yeah.
So a lot of them I wasn't even there for,
Oh, gotcha, for sure. And when you look back, as we're 8 years past the release of that documentary, how have you felt it, holding up over time? You had mentioned, it's developed this cult following, of which I'm a member of, because again, I do think it's excellent work. But how do you look at that project and how it's gone nearly a decade now, which even seems a little crazy to say?
How's it going?
I mean, like, as you look back at the release of that, which is, almost a decade now since it's been out, just how do you look back at that experience? And obviously you're doing this interview with us where we're talking about Hired Gun still. And I can imagine there's been plenty of other people that still ask you about that, that movie.
Well, I have all these great plans and ideas of what I would like to do with it. But it's like you have to sort of pick like, what do you want to focus on? You can't do everything, And I thought, let's get this band up off the ground, and as soon as Flat Black is sort of comfortably orbiting the atmosphere, then we can talk about other things,
For sure. No, I definitely understand that, for sure.
But I would love to do a part 2. I mean, there's certainly enough left over. And we've talked about, I have new managers now, and we're sort of thinking about how to revisit the brand, and maybe have a network, make a series out of it, and all that stuff. I mean, the ideas are easy. Anyone come up with ideas. Executing and getting a result is where the challenge lies.
Sure. No, absolutely, for 100%. And before I kick back over to Steve and Angel, let's bring it back over to Flat Black, of course. What can you tell us currently about the closing of 2024, possibly into 2025, with what you're allowed to announce?
Oh, well, now that the record is out, the primary goal is just to stay on tour. I noticed that like, we deliberately didn't want to sort of slug it out in the clubs. We were fortunate enough to be able to jump on an arena tour. And one thing I noticed is, like, when we're out on those kind of tours, our numbers leap. Social media, Spotify, like, when you're in front of 10, 15,000 people per night that don't know your band, they go, shit, that band was awesome. They go home and look it up, and they follow you, or they. So it's like, it's paramount that we're on tour until 2026.
Yes.
And so that's, we're getting ready to leave again with Godsmack, and that'll be 5 weeks or something. And then we're also doing headline shows. So I'd like to get to Europe. We're talking about festivals, Europe, and all the whole thing. It's like, I've been to this rodeo before. I know how it works, and so I just feel grateful that the conversations are very similar, very similar to what I remember from 2011 and 12 back in the day. The pattern resembles that almost to a T.
Absolutely, for sure. And I mean, you've got, and even just with Flat Black themselves, you even have your own fair share of like headlining dates that you're doing. Like you're playing Boise, you're playing Columbus, and for the fans that are coming out for that, not only with Flat Black playing like as an opening set with those certain set times, but also being the headliner of the show. I mean, Jason, you yourself are always very renowned as a very energetic and very, focal point performer. And that's always something I've always really respected about you, is I love to watch you perform. For people that are going to be seeing Flat Black for the first time, of course, what do they have to look forward to? Like, how would you describe a Flat Black show?
Well, we're going to be playing most of the record, and that will be a first. So if anyone likes the record, we're going to learn every song. We're going to try to cram every one of them in there. If we can't, then we'll probably cut one in half and put two together. I think that right now we have a handful of the old band songs that we're sort of rotating. So on any given night, you'll hear one of 5 or 6 that we've learned, maybe 7. The idea was to like learn a handful of them and then rotate them around so you don't hear the same one all the time, and maybe picking some deeper cuts from the old stuff where you definitely will never hear that live unless you come see us, Cover songs too. We tossed around a bunch of cover songs. I mean, I want to play fucking Van Halen, but I'm not sure how that fits in. But you never know. We're still in the like decision making part of it, and also too, like I wanted to create some custom moments in the show, so it's not just song stop, and then you're over. I want to like sort of design some, like if you watch Godsmack, they have this whole dueling drum kit, a drum solo moment. That's obviously they had to write that, work it out, memorize it. But it's completely custom. You can only see it live, and I think that's something that we're going to do too. We're going to build something from scratch that is only part of our live show, something custom.
Absolutely, 100%. And before I kick it down to Steve, I know that he and Angel are working together when it comes to comments. One more final question for you in my segment, because I used it to promote your Instagram guest announcement for this interview. Jason, is it really okay to be angry?
Well, here's yeah. I mean, it's unavoidable. Human beings feel emotions, and we all feel the same set of emotions. It's how we react to those feelings.
Yes,
is what sets us apart.
No, 100% for sure. Absolutely. Let me kick it back over to Psycho Angel or Angel Steve, or however combination we want to rock it out. But Steve in particular, I am kicking it over to you, my friend.
I think Steve's got his mic muted now.
Yeah, I think they're comboing a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Being a little funny.
Guilty pleasure food to eat or make.
Pizza?
Nice.
Pizza's, I mean, I love it, but you got to be very careful. Is there any other artists that you'd like to work with? Oh, yeah. I mean, we'd be here all day. But, I mean, there are, David Draymond, awesome. Wolfgang Van Halen, awesome. Love Corey Taylor. Would love to do more with him. Dave Grohl. Did I say Dave Grohl already? No. I mean, we could go on and on and on and on, And I may, I feel somewhat free, you know, if I come up with an idea, or want to do something with somebody, I don't need to worry about it being shot down or rejected. You know, like there's a certain amount of freedom, and at this stage in my life, I really don't care what people think either. You know, I at my age, you do stuff that makes you happy because life is, you know, you're on the back half. You know, so what's your craziest music moment? Oh, well, I remember playing Download Festival. That's a huge festival in the UK. Hundreds of thousands of people attend this thing per day. And I remember getting they literally pulled our plug because some of the banter that was coming off of the stage was encouraging people to to crowd surf up to the front, and all of a sudden you've got, you know, thousands of people trying to get up front, and they didn't like that very much, so they pulled the plug on us. And I thought that was a badge of honor to be kicked off of Download 3/4 of the way through your show, you know. And we were, the rebellious part of us thought that that was pretty fucking stellar, you know, like let's cause a ruckus here. Also, too, playing with Rob Halford. Now that I'm thinking, he joined us on stage a couple of times. So I think one show in LA we did, he came up and played. We did a song with Rob, and I've got a lot of great pictures of him and I on stage together. It was really, really cool. You know, it's really weird when you get these like super famous people that are all of a sudden like your pals. You know, pretty cool.
And another question from Dave. How do you feel about the current music situation of tour buy-ons? We're an upcoming band that buys into a tour.
Well, I think you got to do whatever it takes. You know, I mean, there's no shame if you have the resources to open a door and get past your competitors. You got to do whatever it takes. You know, so I mean, I don't see there any problem in that, except for you would want that to be a short-lived scenario. You don't want to be paying to play. But if you can pay to get the door open to the point where you don't have to pay, then it's worth it's the price of admission, right? We've all had to pay it at some point.
When you go out on tour, how many guitars do you take when you're going out on tour?
Oh, well, it's a lot less now, you know, because space is an issue. But in the last situation, I had 2 or 3 vaults, but I also had like 12 strings, 6 strings, double necks, acoustic guitars. I had I was changing guitars for every song almost. So not because I thought it was cool, because I had to, you know. There's a lot of catalog that had to be covered, and certain tunings and acoustics, and had a 12 string for Blue on Black and all that stuff. But right now I can get away with 3. We could do the show with 3 guitars. So, but I'd like to bring at least a backup, so 4 maybe, and then when we're out in the arenas with trucks and stuff, I'd probably roll with, I don't know, a couple more than that, 6 maybe. There's tuning issues. That's the problem. Like one song had a specific tuning, so you need one guitar for that one song. Like Halo, for example. Halo is a 7-string tuned to B flat standard with a drop G sharp. I know it sounds really confusing to everybody that doesn't play guitar, but that's the only song we do with that tuning. You know. So you know, that's why we don't play it. If we're doing a fly date, I can only bring enough guitars to cover the rest of the set, so we don't play Halo, or we didn't play Halo on some of the flight dates because I didn't have room for another guitar. But these are the fun challenges of starting over.
Steve wants to know, who are your rock star friends?
Whoa. You are, Steve.
Same thing.
Yeah, you guys. How's that? Answer A.
Dude, you're Jason Hook, man. I'll take that all day.
What else you got?
That's all I have on the boards.
On the board?
Yeah.
No problem, man. Absolutely. Jason, you and I talked momentarily off the air about a band that I super enjoy that you have contributed to, and wanted to ask you a little bit about the time that you spent in that band and putting together a record. And I would love to hear a little bit of story time about the Sophie record and your time working with Mark Torian and the Bullet Boys, if you're cool with that.
Sure. Yeah. I always thought that band was really cool. I think that what they were doing at the end of the 80s, I think they were very deliberately trying to develop their own sound, and they weren't polished, and they weren't, I think they were trying to find their own lane and do things that were different than what everyone else was doing, and sort of an organic, live off the floor, we're a real band type presentation. And so I always respected that. They didn't have the commercial success as some of the other bands from that genre, but I thought they were true to what they believed in, and that was just to be like a living, breathing, organic, identifiable thing of its own, And so when I first moved to Los Angeles, a friend of mine introduced me to Mick Sueda, who is, or was, the one of the primaries in the band. He was the original guitar player who came from King Cobra, which I thought King Cobra was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Especially the first record. The first record was cool to me. And so I was dying to meet Mick. And so when I first moved to Los Angeles, I was in a band with Mick and Jeremy Spencer, who was the original drummer from Death Punch. We were in a band called Brainstem Babies, which didn't really take off, but we played everywhere we could in Los Angeles. And eventually Mick started talking to Bullet Boys again, and they were talking about reuniting. I mean, they've reunited 62 times or whatever, but he was in the band, and so we were like, okay, cool, that's great. And then we were going to watch him play, and then I think he had enough of it and said, listen, do you want me to tell them about you? Was that something you're interested in? Because I'm out. I'm bailing on this. But if you want it, I'll tell them that they need to get you. And I was like, fuck yeah, let's try it. So he did. He said, I'm not going to do this anymore, but I've got the greatest guitar player for you. And that's how I got in.
Nice. That's super cool, man. How do you, and when it comes to the record itself, how do you remember the recording process going? Because like yourself, I've always been under the impression that Mark is always a perfectionist and stylistically about what he likes to put out. So I could definitely see you guys having a very common personality when it comes to that. But how do you remember the recording process for Sophie?
It was interesting. I mean, things are so different now, but the drummer in the band at the time, Pete something, I forgot his last name, but he had a house in Glendale, and Mark is old school, so he writes the song, and he likes to work things up like in the old days, like we would have to be together with our amps and drums and everything, and we worked on those songs as a group together. I would bring a little thing in, he would bring a thing in, we'd finish it together, or they'd be like, what's that thing you just played, blah, blah, blah. And we literally would work it up like that, just like in the old days, right? and we were rehearsing in the living room of this poor guy's house, and Andy Johns produced the record, and his claim to fame was the Van Halen record, right? And so working with Andy Johns right out of the gate, I was pretty blown away because he had done the Van Halen stuff. And so Andy would show up at this guy's house, Pete Burke, sorry, that's his name. Andy Johns would show up at this little house and sit with us and drink, 24 beers all day and walk us through what to do and what not to do. And then we went in with Andy to a studio called Cherokee, which I want to say maybe on La Brea or Fairfax or something in Hollywood. And we're out there with the headphones. I got my Marshall and my guitar, and 1, 2, 3, go off the floor. Kind of. It was really a very different experience, but kind of what I was used to growing up. It's just like you have to play in the studio. There's no mouse, And I think it has a charm of its own. It's very organic. I mean, I did all the solos and everything were like right on the spot, any of the guitar sounds, and that was a microphone on my Marshall, and and I remember playing one thing, and Andy John said, "Okay, congratulations, you've perfectly created an Eddie Van Halen solo. Now I'm going to erase it, and we're going to find out what does Jason's solo sound like." And I go, "Oh man." I can't blame him, but I was in the ether of him and his history and whatever.
No, absolutely. And one more thing for me in this segment before I pass it back to the guys, Jason. I'm a big guitar nerd. I always have been, and I love gear. And I would love to hear a little bit about the guitars you play, how you got fixed up with the company that you work with, and your Explorer guitars and the stylistic designs of your guitars too, because they've always had that. A lot of them have had that very military-esque look to them.
Right. Well, I remember playing with Alice Cooper, and I was working with Gibson. I started talking to Gibson when I was with Vince Neil, and Gibson was like, we don't really give away guitars, and we'd be happy to sell you something if you need it. And back then I was broke, and but when I started playing with Alice, I contacted them again, and they were like, "Well, what do you need?" I said, "I could use a couple guitars because, I got to cover a lot of tunings and stuff." And I said, what about Explorers? Because the other guitar player and the other guitar players in Alice's band for the last several years were all playing Les Paul. And I'm like, it's just not that original anymore. Like, we've seen that to death, but there aren't that many shredders out there playing Explorers. So I said, well, send me one, so they actually sent me 2 Explorers, and I started using them nonstop all the way through Alice Cooper. And it's different because, your arm kind of comes through that. There's a V, like there's a shape like that. Your arm comfortably comes into that space, where with a Les Paul, it's rounded and your arm has to come up over the roundness. And this was more like that, where the hand comes into the pocket there. And the whole guitar is sort of shifted this way a little bit, like the bridge of a Les Paul and the pickups are kind of right centered. But with an Explorer, they're kind of forward, a little further. Everything's a little further this way. So I can't go back now. I pick up regular guitars. I'm like, I can't play this. I'm used to playing everything like this, and everything's now like this. I'm like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of, but I, it's become like my favorite guitar. I have, I don't know, 40 Explorers or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. Sometimes I just look at I look around online. I'm like, ooh, I want that one. I just click and it's on its way, and I'm thinking, gotta stop doing that,
Mm-hmm.
But the stripe thing, I knew that at the beginning beginning of the last band, I thought, I really wanted to have something that was identifiable. Every guitar player has, we look at Eddie Van Halen and Zakk Wylde and Randy Rhoads and all these people. Like, if you can get something early on, that's your thing, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't really know what the hell to do, but I had a very talented artist friend of mine that I just said, try this, try that, try that. And he would mock it all up in Illustrator and place it on the guitar shape. And we tweaked it and tweaked it and tweaked it. And I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. I mean, back then it was like, oh, like that's a little intense, man, putting that whole chevron thing on a guitar. But now I can't, like, now it's just become common. Like, I can't see me playing guitar. It's not as cool, and I just thought if you can put the time and the energy into designing something that is unique, that is yours, if you do that in the beginning stages of what it ended up being like a 15-year run with that other band, if you put the time in the beginning and get something that's really highly identifiable, it can last forever. You just got to sort of stop everything and go, I need to focus on this and come up with this idea. So that's how that started.
No, that's awesome, Jason. I love that. I mean, I love talking gear. I love strings and all that kind of fun stuff. Just out of curiosity, I mean, you've been such, like you said, a hardcore explorer guy. You can't, even play really other stuff, like you said, just because of that feel. But just out of curiosity, do you have any experience playing like Jackson Kelly's? Because they kind of have a similar design. They kind of have a little bit of a similar physical look and stuff. I just was kind of curious if you had any experience with them.
I have one.
Oh, right on.
I have one. I have the Jeff Loomis.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a shredding machine. It has a Floyd on it, which is cool. But again, I'm so used to just like a stop tail, no Floyd, no whammy bar. When I record in the studio, like when I record solos and stuff, I'm using a Super Strat with a whammy with a Floyd on it. Because it's when you're sitting down, that's when the Explorer is kind of like a little weird, because you get this huge piece of wood that comes up right, like, it's kind of weird. But
yeah,
when I'm doing all my solos, I do on Super Strats. And so I called Jackson and I have a buddy over there, and I was like, I really want to try that. Can you send it over? And it's a cool guitar, but I have like 100 guitars, and so it's sitting there next to the 99 others.
totally. Oh no, absolutely. No, that's super cool. I was like, I love the bodies of Explorers, and there's also been something I've always had a little bit of a soft spot for Jackson Kelly's. I think it's just because like that fin, that lower fin has a little bit more of like a sharper design to it that I like. Me personally, I'll be honest, like my favorite body shape is actually the Mockingbird from BC Rich. I don't really know exactly what it is, but there's something about that specific body shape, the fin and the way that one's designed, that's probably my overall favorite like body shape of a guitar.
It's a Mockingbird?
Yeah.
I think the one I liked from them that I don't own was I think it's the Rich Bitch.
Oh yeah.
And they have a version that has 10 strings, and the tuning pegs are sort of like in the cavity of the back of the guitar.
Yeah.
Joe Perry used to play that. Slash used to play one of those, So if I was going to own a BC Rich, that's the one I would go for.
Nice. That's awesome. Metal Summoners, we're going to kick it back over to Psycho Steve. We're also going to kick it over to Angel. At that same time, though, we do want to be very respectful of Jason's time. He's been amazing, and we really appreciate everything. We've got him for a little while longer, but we really want to be courteous of his time and appreciative of the time that you've spent with us, my friend. So it is going to be last call for alcohol fans. Any final comments, questions, curiosities that you want to ask Jason about what's going on with Flat Black? Shows, music, things like that, don't be shy. Pump them into the comments because we always clear the board and we will get to them. But now is your time to get those in. Again, we just want to be courteous and understanding of Jason's evening and his time with us. Psycho Steve, Angel, let's kick it back over to you guys, my friends.
Do you have a favorite guitar?
Yeah, I don't know where it is. I think it's downstairs. It's not up here right now, but it's one of the Explorers. I mean, I don't know if you can see. That's one of the original ones I did. It's black and green. That's pretty cool. I mean, the white and black version of that is downstairs, and because we just got back from we just played with Godsmack, and all my cases are in the garage, but it's the black and white one. I don't have it here, but it's that one. It was one of the very first ones I did on my own before Gibson got involved in the signature model. And that's it. If you look around the internet, I'm sure there's lots of pictures of it.
Favorite venue?
Well, favorite venue.
Wow.
I mean,
Favorite venue.
favorite venue in the USA. Well, Red Rocks is pretty cool. I think Madison Square Gardens is pretty cool. Madison Square Garden, singular. What am I doing? Pepsi Center in Denver. I mean, there's a lot of really. I like the big ones. Saddle Dome in Canada, and in Edmonton. Is it Edmonton? Oh, I'm gonna get chewed for this. Calgary, Saddle Dome. Fuck. Sorry. Calgary, Saddle Dome. You know, like when you grow up, sort of like going to see your favorite bands playing these places, and then if you're lucky, you get to play them yourself. And there's always that sort of like pinch me moment, you know. I can't believe I'm playing this place. And when you walk into them during the day, they're so empty and big, and it's just like the vibe is just like, wow, lucky. Yeah.
And just want to say hi to Blevins. He's a fellow musician. He's a TMSI alumni. He's been kicking cancer's ass. So just wonder if you just give him.
Right on, Blevins. Blevins?
Yep.
Right on, brother. Happy for you. Always wanted one of your guitars. Well, they're out there. I mean, they're not. Gibson isn't currently making any of the signature Explorers of mine anyway. But we're talking about doing a new run. Right now, they've got their hands full with Mustaine. You know, they're making all his. They're doing an Explorer for him right now. They sent me one of his V's, which I love because it's a Fender scale on a Gibson body and 24 frets, which is not, all that stuff is not common for a Gibson. It's a really cool guitar.
And what advice would you give to new musicians just starting out?
Well, practice. You know, practice with a metronome. Practice playing in time. Practice playing with other people too. Like it's this whole like sit in front of the plugins and do everything inside the computer. I mean, get out, stand up, use an amp, use your drum kit, get out and play with your friends. I think you'll learn the fundamentals when you're playing with human beings. You know, like I used to tune my guitar with a pitch pipe. That's how old I am. You know, like where you go blow, and then you tune up, you know, pitch pipe. But in essence, what that does is it trains your ear to recognize that tone. Right now, everyone just plugs into a digital thing that does this, and you don't. What do you learn? Your brain isn't trained from that. You
know. When it comes to touring, what's your favorite part about touring and your least favorite?
My favorite part about touring is playing my guitar on stage. That's the best part. The other 23 hours of the day can be a little boring. You know, like I work during the day on tour. I try to get up and do stuff. You know, there's an endless list, especially with Flat Black, where I'm sort of you know, captaining the ship to a certain degree. So I mean, I'm excited to just do whatever it takes. You know, interviews, or I'm doing all kinds of design work on the visuals and the web page, this video editing. I mean, there's an endless list of stuff. So I try to fill it up. But the hardest part about touring is a honestly, just the confinement and there is a lot of sitting around. You got to sort of like move, get up and move and do stuff if you want to stay active.
I'm gonna kick it back up to you, Jay.
Absolutely, no problem. And as we bring it back over to Flat Black, of course, Jason, because we want to keep it, current and all the excitement around the new record. What would you say are your current, goals when it comes to the album for the fans as well as Flat Black in general? Now, of course, you mentioned being staying current on the road, getting out there and touring consistently and playing your music. But do you have any personal goals for this project, being that it, is so, deep because it's yours, that you want to see it achieve?
Well, look, my answer to that is exactly the same as everybody else who's in the band, in their own band, is that in a perfect world, we'd like to keep doing it. And it's fueled only by the interest and demand of the public. So in a perfect world, you would want more people than less to like your band enough to come and see you play. And that helps sustain it, like it does cost a lot to be on tour and do all the things you got to do. And so you would at least like it to be able to sustain itself, that would be nice. I would, look, it's different for me because I'm not a starving artist. So like, I do whatever it takes, and I do it at the pace that I'm comfortable. And I'm lucky that it's going as well as it is going. I just need a purpose and something to feel excited about when I get out of bed, just like all of us,
Absolutely, 100%. And just this final question, of course, I wanted to be completely courteous to you and to your, history when it comes to it. I also just want to show the respect to your fans because, of course, they support you, they love you, and they're as appreciative of you are as we are for everything you've given. And simply put, when you look back at your time with Death Punch, what are just some of your fondest memories of your time? Was there anything in particular that a moment, a show, a festival that really, that you really look back fondly of? And what were some of those experiences that helped you shape Flat Black?
Well, there was a lot of firsts for me in that band and with the other guys. And when I say firsts, I mean, I've never had a platinum record. Now I have 2. Now I have 3. Now I have 4, and they keep coming. And it's like a lot of first-time experiences. I've never headlined an arena. We got to all those levels, and obviously they're still going. So, when you're with your friends and you're going through all those firsts, it's pretty exciting. And my memories are all fond. Like I'm very lucky to have experienced that stuff. It's rare stuff. And there are a million more guitar players in the world that would like to experience that too. So I'm very particular about feeling grateful and lucky to have all that stuff. And so my memories are fond. I mean, we had a lot of fun. And I just remember the quote at the time was, being in a band shouldn't suck. So what does everyone want to do? Like, we want a masseuse. Okay, fucking pay for one. Like, we'll just bring one.
For sure.
Like, if you're fortunate enough to have some success, it doesn't have to make the things that you treat yourself to, they don't have to make sense to anyone else but you in the band. And you don't have to justify it. We all had personal assistants, that may be a little extravagant, but fuck it. It made life really easy for a band that toured 10 months every year.
Yeah.
So, it was a good time. It was a good time. And I'm lucky that it put me here, and I'm very happy. So
No, absolutely, Jason. And thank you so much, sir. We really appreciate that. Absolutely. Angel, let me kick it back up to you for a moment, my friend. Is there anything new that's popped up on the board? Or is there anything final from yourself for Jason before I wrap it up with him with a couple of our typical closing questions?
Final from Steve. He says thank you. He says he's definitely looking forward to seeing you. So he definitely says thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, no problem. You got it. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, no, absolutely our pleasure. And before we let you go, Jason, of course, please, where can Flat Black be found? Where can you be found? The record, please let the fans know.
On Instagram, it's just Flat Black. My Instagram page is just Jason Hook. The website is flatblackmusic.com. And from there, you can pretty much on the website, there's all the tour dates, Spotify links, everything from flatblackmusic.com. So
Awesome.
that's it. Yeah.
For sure. And Jason, first and foremost, thank you so much. We really, really appreciate your courtesy, being on our show and just rocking out with us. The biggest thing for myself, Angel, and Steve has always been that you enjoyed yourself, you had a good time, you felt respected, and that you felt this was worth your time and that it was beneficial to Flat Black.
Yeah, right on. It's been great.
Awesome.
Yeah,
well, Jason, we won't hold you up. We'll let you relax with your family, enjoy your time the rest of your evening. Again, thank you so much on behalf of myself, Angel Alamo, and Psycho Steve. Thank you so much, sir. We really appreciate you rocking out, and we look forward to seeing you out on tour. It's always going to be a great time.
Right on, guys. Have a good night.
You too as well, my friend. Metal Summoners, Flat Black fans, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate you guys hanging out, supporting Jason, Flat Black, and everything that he's done throughout his career, and rocking out with him this evening, asking great questions, and just being involved. Thank you for the courtesies you've shown, as well as also supporting, Hired Gun, which we talked about as well. So thank you guys. We really appreciate you fans. You guys are fantastic. Make sure that you're following Jason on his socials. He just told you about him. Flat Black socials as well, and the .com for the tour dates, merch, and all that fun stuff. You can follow Psycho Steve at The Real Psycho Steve on Instagram. You can also find him on Facebook at Psycho Steve. You can also find Angel on Instagram at Angel Alamo 78. You can also find him on Facebook as well. You can find me best at Instagram at Salem.vampire. Please follow Metal Summit on Facebook and YouTube because that's where we're live. But Instagram is where we put out the guest announcements first. So if you want to know who we've got coming on the show first, Instagram is definitely a page that follows. Thank you guys all so much. We appreciate it. A shout out to the Mad Shad who designed our intro that we deafened Jason with when we started off the show. But thank you, Mad Shad, for putting together that intro for us. And fans, you can follow him on YouTube at the Mad Shad channel. Thank you guys so much. You guys take care. You have yourselves an absolutely fantastic weekend. But also, we do have an episode of the Metal Summit tomorrow evening. We're very much looking forward to talking to Patriarchs in Black. And that's going to be a great time as well. But on behalf of Jason Hook and Flat Black, we appreciate his time. And again, thank you so much, Jason. You have yourself a fantastic one. And we look forward to having you back on again in the future.
Anytime, man.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much, fans. We're going to sign it off. For Angel Alamo, for Psycho Steve, for myself.